Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden, what if, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I am back with a brand new what if. The first, actually, what if Naofumi, well, that will be a series. It is what if Naofumi was summoned to Siltvelt. Obviously, huge spoiler warnings if you haven't seen like anything else but the anime. I know very limited about Siltvelt, and honestly, frankly, the entirety of the fandom knows very little about Siltvelt. I'm not going to sit here and say that we know so much about it, but I am going to keep it to, well, what I know, and also just me being as creative as possible with characters and stuff like that. It also will help with the whole spoiler warning. You won't know as much as you would if you read like the light novel and stuff. I did read up a little bit on it, but there wasn't too much that I could at least understand and like get behind. But there was some things that I learned about Siltvelt that is definitely going to help me in this what if. But with all that said and done, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, and let's just get right into part 1 of what if Naofumi was summoned to Siltvelt. Naofumi Iwatani, the boy, or honestly the man, that was about 20 years old. He lived with his parents and his little brother. Since he took care of his little brother, he was back on allowance, back from actually going to school, and he could enjoy the simple things, like being an otaku. Naofumi loved his manga and loved his reading, and one day he was in a library, reading through, well, tons and tons of books. Naofumi then finds a book that is called The Four Cardinal Heroes, and he begins reading about the spear, the bow, the sword, and then eventually the shield, reading that the shield would always be summoned to a place, a country by the name of Siltvelt. But as Naofumi continues to read, it seems like there's a blank page, followed by another blank page, by another, and then another, and then another. Naofumi begins to get confused, and even thinks about bringing the book up to, well, the librarian. But as he begins to think this, the book begins to glow, and he begins to get transported to another world. When Naofumi wakes up, he sees something odd. He sees a shield on one arm, and he looks up to see multiple people. Wait, are they people? He sees these people that are part human, but part animal of some sort. They introduce themselves as the, well, noblemen of Siltvelt. Siltvelt is the place where they summon the legendary shield hero. And Naofumi is shocked by this. Legendary shield hero, what are you talking about? They say that the top nobleman will explain more when he arrives. And Naofumi just agrees and heads off, well, to meet the nobleman. He arrives in their kingdom and he stands before all of them. It seems to be about 4 of them, and they explain that their government isn't based upon a king and a queen. It's a little different. They have different ways of, well, handling certain scenarios and certain aspects of their country. And Naofumi nods, not really wanting to know that detail and not really needing to know the detail, but is grateful that they trust him enough to explain it. But as he begins to ponder this, they begin explaining everything that's going on. The waves, and that there's these waves of catastrophe that are running rampant on this world, including their country, and also the other countries. The other countries currently have just summoned their other heroes as well, and they needed Naofumi, or the shield hero, to help them. Obviously, Naofumi introduces himself. They don't know exactly who he is, and he explains that he's Naofumi Iwatani, college student, 20 years old. They nod and begin asking him questions, if he knows about this world, if he knows anything already prior to coming here. Naofumi explains that he doesn't know actually any of it. But they begin explaining to him actually explaining mostly everything. Anything they know of legend of the shield hero and legend of, well, any weapon they know of. They explain all the other weapons and then also explain the shield, and that if he looks in the bottom right hand corner, he can check out his status magic, which is basically his way of looking at his stats. They explain some other things, but they say that that's all they really know, and that it's fine, that most of the time the shield hero doesn't know much about this world, that other people around their country will definitely be able to help him, but it all comes down to this. And the four, well, obviously noblemen, begin explaining. You see, this world is overrun, and you need to create a party, something strong enough to fight the waves of catastrophe to protect Siltvelt. Of course, you will be handsomely rewarded, do not worry. Everybody in this country loves the shield hero. Us demi-humans are loyal to the shield hero. It seems that every time the shield hero is here, he is, well, the best we could ask for. Well, I am truly grateful for the optimism that you hold for me, and I promise I will not disappoint. This is very, very overwhelming though. I hope you understand. They say they do understand, and that Naofumi will be eased in as best as they possibly can, but at the end of the day, he needs to be able to get strong enough to help everybody. Naofumi then brings up the fact that as the shield hero, it's going to be difficult for him to actually fight, and that's when they say that they'll be more or less having people audition in a way or try out for his, well, squad. And he nods, saying that he'll take what he can get and that they should start right away. They all agree as well, and they give Naofumi a certain amount of money so that he can go and get some armor and some clothing for himself, in which he's able to do relatively quickly on his own initially. But he actually has some questions. He wants to ask the nobleman about if there's anything truly bad in this world. The noblemen are slightly confused by the question, but frankly they give as well as an answer as they possibly could, saying that their international relationships are more or less okay, but obviously they have some quarrels with Melromark and some other places. But it's nothing to really care about too much. They don't hate anyone necessarily, but Melromark is definitely on the bridge of their spite. The fact that Melromark basically has been capturing and more or less actually enslaving demi-humans as well, and the way they act toward demi-humans in this discriminatory way is a huge reason why they do not like Melromark. Now Fumi nods toward this and asks if they are personally doing other things that could cause for concern, like them personally, in terms of, well, obviously Siltvelt. And they respond with a resounding no, that they aren't doing anything out of the ordinary, and they would never. This is the place of the Church of the Shield, so they wouldn't want to displease, well, the shield hero himself. He thanks them for that, and doesn't mean to overstep his boundaries by any means, but he just wants to know everything that's going on to the best of he can possibly understand, because at the end of the day, he is a technical human. He's no demi-human, you could say. So if they do hate humans, it's partially as if they hated him. They say that that's just not the case. They don't necessarily hate humans. They hate the way that certain humans treat other demi-humans. Like they brought up earlier, the enslavery of many demi-humans in Melromark. And Naofumi nods and says that they'll be, well, handling that very soon, and he'd love to speak with the royalty of Melromark. But for now, he wants to get settled in this world and also get settled in, obviously, training and getting levels the best he possibly knows. So the first place he goes is a blacksmith. He meets a blacksmith that more or less tries to help him out the best he possibly can, and he gets really good discounts and maybe even gets stuff for free, learning quickly that he can actually touch these other shields and actually change his shield. The blacksmith then basically tells him that he should look up and actually try and find some party members, And the blacksmith actually has some recommendations. He actually has a daughter that is pretty well versed in magic, or well, basically is a mage. And Naofumi says that he would love to meet her, and she actually comes out from the back and she was helping with inventory. She immediately bows to Naofumi and says that it's an honor to meet him, and that she doesn't even deserve to be in the graces of the great shield hero. But he says that there's no reason to speak so, well, highly of him. He hasn't done anything yet. The other shield heroes have made you fond of me, and I appreciate that, but I hope to follow in their footsteps, and hopefully I can make everybody in this country proud of what the shield hero is. And the girl says that of course he will, and she says that she'd love to help him along the way the best she possibly can. And he says that he hasn't had a party member quite yet, but as a thanks to the blacksmith being so nice and helpful, that he would love to have her on the party, and that a mage would definitely be beneficial. She says that sounds amazing. She introduces herself as Akari, and the blacksmith thanks Naofumi and says that he can always choose to not have her in the party, but Naofumi cuts him off, saying that it's all about building a party up. You can't just switch people in and out and expect something to go well. Naofumi knows this from previous video games. He's always been one of those planner type people. He wasn't ever a gamer that would love to just, oh, let me go fight people in this or fight in this. He loved to plan. So party building was one of them. The fact that he knows that he needs a swordsman, someone that can stand on the front line and he can move in and out with that person to protect them. He needs someone in the back line that can heal, that can shoot from a distance like an archer or a mage. He knows that he needs all of these aspects to truly be a productive party, and he's learned pretty quickly that the military and the people in Siltvelt are very capable. And hopefully this mage is just as capable as, well, these other people that he's heard about. With that all said and done, finally the mage, Akari, and Naofumi go out and begin training on these small, weird balloon-like animals that are actually this dark blue color. It seems like they blend into the environment, and there's some rivers and water nearby that Naofumi can find even more monsters. But quickly he's able to level up. It seems that having someone in his party, for one, gives him a boost of XP when they defeat monsters, but also when he defeats monsters as well. He explains to her and apologizes actually that he's kind of not able to help very much. She says it's fine, that she's heard that the past shield heroes struggled with this as well, and it's not a big deal. That when you have a shield, and well, obviously you need to protect people, that's what matters. So he should be able to protect his party while his party is going to fight for him. So their training then begins. Leveling up becomes harder and harder as they continue to level, and Akari continues to mature into, well, actual adulthood as she levels up. And this is when Naofumi is kind of confused. Akari looked probably around the age of maybe 13, 14. Now she's easily almost 20 to 23. And Akari explains that that's just how demi-humans work. When they level up, they actually mature. Naofumi and Akari are at obviously a decent level, actually a higher level than what Naofumi would have been in the original canon of Shield Hero. The fact is that Akari was a lot more capable than Raphtalia than when they first started, and having a magic user definitely puts a lot of, well, help in terms of in battle with Naofumi. But with that said, Naofumi does want to gather maybe 1 or 2 more party members before the first wave. With only 2 to 2.5 weeks left before that first wave, he begins thinking that he did promise that he would try his best to get back all the slaves that were more or less in slavery at Melromark. So he asks the nobleman if he could speak with the king or maybe the queen, And they explain that the king doesn't like him very much, but the queen has no problem with him by any means, so they can definitely set up a meeting about halfway in terms of between Melromark and Siltvelt. But during this time, it will take a couple days for everything to get set up, so Naofumi takes his extra couple days to obviously just level up and get Akari new armor. Akari profusely thanks him, but he keeps telling her that she doesn't need to treat him in such a way, that they are more or less equals. And she finds this idea outlandish. She could never be equal to the shield hero, not the legendary shield hero, the person that saves everybody in this country. And Naofumi just smiles and appreciates being, well, you could say, appreciated. Naofumi, obviously, when he first came to this world, he was just optimistic, hopeful, and this is all the hopes he can think of: being respected, being loved, being cherished. This is what Naofumi was lacking in his world, and this makes him want to work harder. But he's not like the other heroes, or at least he wouldn't know that exactly. In canon, the other heroes more or less believed that they were in a video game. Naofumi never came to this fruition and still believes that this is a new world. Like he said before, this world has a different climate, and he even thought that it was more or less a different type of universe, but obviously we know that it was just because it was more Caribbean-like, or Caribbean-like. But Naofumi doesn't really know much about outside of Japan, so being here is as if he's in a different world. No, not like a video game. So Naofumi takes this very seriously and appreciates every little gesture he can get. 3 days then pass and the leveling up is put to a halt, and obviously Naofumi gets some new gear and stuff like that. Very similar to what he has in canon. But with all that said, it's time for Naofumi to have his meeting with the queen. But actually, the queen decides to just come over to Siltvelt. She asks if that would be okay, and then she would love to meet the, well, shield hero without him going out and meeting her there. Frankly, he has a busy job, and she doesn't want to waste more of his time. She greets him, and they immediately begin speaking, and he speaks basically about the idea that there's these slave markets that are holding demi-humans, and she nods. Yes, it seems in my absence that the slave market has definitely been flourishing, and also demi-humans have been used as slaves for a while in Melromark. I truly am sorry about this. I wasn't sure about how to approach this, and frankly wasn't sure that it was happening until you brought this to my attention. I appreciate your concern, and I would love to help out the best I possibly can. Yes, actually, I'm sorry for bringing you here on such short notice. I just worry about these demi-humans. Obviously, they have been treating me very well, so I feel like I need to reach out and ask about this. The queen then explains that he can more or less buy out any of the slaves that are in the slave markets that they know about, and he nods, saying that he understands that everything is a business at the end of the day, and that it's not as simple as the queen going down there and taking them away. Thank you, I appreciate you understanding this, because if I did do that, it would definitely make communication with the people in my country very, very much harder. That is completely fine, I understand. How much money would it cost to buy out all those demi-humans? She explains that she's not sure, but she'll get back to him on that immediately, and she'll have basically the royal guard have all the demi-humans that are more or less captive sent over. He gives her all the money he has, which is a good sum of money because the demi-humans are pretty generous in terms of how much they're giving Naofumi. And after about 5 to 6 days, demi-humans are then brought to Naofumi. But he sees that some of them are more or less beast monsters, and others are not even quite demi-humans, it seems. But Akari explains that they are demi-humans, it's just they're different. They're made differently, it seems. Some demi-humans are kind of like beast men, and they live here in this inhabitants as well, but it seems like these evolved even more. Naofumi sighs at this and is frustrated by this fact. That's until he finds a little girl with a cough by the name of Raftalia. He helps Raftalia, and Raftalia immediately recognizes Naofumi, or recognizes the shield on his arm, asking truly if he's the shield hero. And he nods, saying that he truly is, and she hugs him. "What's your name?" "My name's Raftalia." Naofumi looks at Raftalia and pats her on the head, saying that she'll be part of the shield hero's party if she so chooses to agree. And Akari says that that's not the best idea. They don't know if she's actually going to be good, useful, or anything. She just got out of slavery. And Naofumi shakes his head, saying that he can tell that there's determination in her eyes, and that when there's pain and when there's loss, there's a lot to be, tapped into. Naofumi takes Raftalia, helps her get cleaned up, and obviously gets new clothing and stuff like that, and then gives her a sword, and tells her that they'll be fighting together. There'll be the mage, the shield, and the sword. And Raftalia is for this completely, as she coughs a little bit as well. This leads to Naofumi grinding up some, medicines you could say, and giving Raftalia a cure for her mild flu. Some time passes and Raftalia starts training or leveling up with Naofumi, and she still goes through that scared little girl version of herself, that she's terrified of blood and terrified of monsters. Even leading to them to a cave where they fight a monster very similar to one she saw in her past. But since that it wasn't that similar, Naofumi and even Akari were able to comfort her, telling her that everything is fine and that this is her chance to, show what she has in store. She stabs the giant monster, gaining insane amounts of XP and breaking through that fear that she was holding. About 2.5 weeks then pass. Leveling up has gone really well for Naofumi, Akari, and Raftalia, and Raftalia has matured almost just as much as Akari, in which they do have this kind of weird rivalry because they want Naofumi's attention, just like how Raftalia wanted his attention in terms of with Philo. But Naofumi doesn't really realize this. He's kind of coy to a lot of things and doesn't really understand the magnitude of this, and doesn't understand the magnitude of how much demi-humans really love him. With 48 hours though left before the first wave, Naofumi decides to get the military of, obviously, Siltvelt ready and prepared, explaining to them that they should have certain sectors, making sure that these villages are safe and sound. And they agree. They say that they already did this before, and they were able to defend the very first wave off with relative ease. And he's happy to hear this, saying that, asking why, he was summoned in the first place then, if they were able to defend it. And the noblemen explain that the waves get more powerful as the time passes on. The first wave will be a lot weaker than the third. Will be a lot weaker, frankly, even than the second. And Naofumi finally understands. He gets why he was summoned. It must have been because these other countries as well needed the help. So, since one hero is going to be summoned, they all kind of have to be summoned in their own places. The noblemen say that's exactly true. Yes, they were able to handle this last wave. Maybe they would be even able to handle this next one. There's no guarantee, but there's a good chance. But since, Melromark and some other places weren't doing so well, they decided to summon their heroes in as well. So, that means that Siltvelt had to summon in the shield hero. And they believe that this is the best course of action. Maybe him being here early will give him an early jump on, getting leveled up and getting ready. Naofumi agrees, saying that he's already gained substantial amounts of shields and also some very unique moves. He actually shows them off to show the kingdom what they're dealing with, and also how it can be used in battle, showing off his shield prison, his airstrike shield, and stuff like that. and they're impressed. They say that he's made in very good developments in this short amount of time, and his party members have made such good developments as well. Akari is arguably probably the best mage they have now, and she wasn't even that strong to start with, and Raphtalia was just a slave, and now she's an expert swordsman. And Naofumi nods, saying that he really didn't do much. They were able to train on their own, and they were able to help him truly. They both say that that's just not true. Naofumi was the one that really got them this strong, and Naofumi says that that's nice of them, but they shouldn't be so modest. Well, with 48 hours remaining, they get their health potions and all the supplies they possibly can. Naofumi is big on stuff like this. He wants to make sure everything will go squeaky clean. He needs to be prepared for the worst. And Naofumi says this, saying that they need to be prepared no matter what, and they begin to cover other villages around Siltvelt to make sure that everyone is safe. With now the wave approaching, the wave, the first one of its kind, Naofumi and his party, Akari and Raphtalia, will be fighting the main boss, while the other demi-humans will protect the villages. Now that the wave is about to begin, Naofumi and his party get teleported away, and in front of them is a giant boss, a giant manticore-like monster. It seems like it has a giant mane and also a tail with a snake. It seems definitely odd, and the monster is definitely fierce, but Naofumi feels that his party and him will be able to defeat it very easily. Quickly, he puts it into a shield prison and tells Akari to use her magic. She does just that, creating this odd mist within the shield prison, and that mist begins to more or less clog the air pathways for the monster, slowly but surely degrading its defense, its stats completely, and hurting it extremely. Eventually, he has to release the shield prison, and Raphtalia dives in and stabs it right in the gut. They had a plan from the very beginning, depending on what would come out. If it was multiple monsters, this wouldn't be effective, but they had some other ways to defend against it. He would go jump in and out of the way to protect Raphtalia as she slices people up, as obviously Akari would stay in the back line. But this, with one giant monster, is perfect. Putting it in a shield prison and degrading it as much as possible immediately leaves Raphtalia an easy way of stabbing it and defeating it. Luckily, Raphtalia is able to hurt it extremely bad, as Naofumi uses an airstrike shield, puncturing it through the wound and then ripping it in half. Just like that, in a matter of minutes, you could say, the monster is defeated and the wave is complete. Naofumi is shocked by this. He feels like they must have been overprepared, but Raphtalia and Akari say that they weren't just overprepared, that they need to be this prepared, that the next wave will be exponentially harder, and that if they're smart about it, that, well, they should be able to defend against every single one. And obviously Akari knows more about the waves than Raphtalia would, but being around her people now, she knows a lot more. They're graciously able to explain everything that is occurring, but the only thing is, there's some jealous people in Siltvelt. More specifically, some jealous royalty. It seems like the nobleman's daughters are not happy that Naofumi chose, well, practically peasant-like party members, and they're succeeding. They find this ridiculous that he decided to take a slave and someone, well, some daughter that's a blacksmith's daughter. That is absolutely ridiculous. But with all that said, those ideas are set in place very quickly. The noblemen say that Naofumi has an eye for this, and that if they want his recognition, they should do more than just try to look good and try to seduce him. That won't work with this shield hero, and it never has. The noblemen obviously want their daughters to be in the good cahoots of the shield hero, but they do realize that This shield hero always has his own motives, always has these ideals that he follows, and it seems like Naofumi is very similar to one in its past as well, at least one they heard about. Naofumi is very modest, you can say, timid in fact, but he does realize the importance of this world and does realize that he needs to be on his game all the time, needs to be in tip-top shape, and the noblemen respect this, thinking that this is great, so they make sure that their daughters are whipped into shape. If they want to be in the good cahoots of the shield hero, they need to train hard, level up, and be strong, just like the other two members of Naofumi's party. But with all that said and done, frankly, all that is left is to celebrate the first wave that the shield hero has vanquished with him and his party. He's not big on big parties like this. Naofumi is very much an introvert, but he decides he'll go nonetheless. They've been so nice to him, it'd be rude for him not to. So he goes to a party that they threw, and he meets various noblemen's daughters and introduces himself, in which obviously they know who he is, but he still feels that this is the proper way of going about it. After some greeting and obviously some eating, out of nowhere, one of the, you could call noblemen's daughters, introduces herself. And Naofumi asks why she's introducing herself so late, and her name is Cynthia. And Cynthia points toward Raphtalia and says that she challenges her to a duel. A duel for, well, she wants to be in Naofumi's party instead of her. She pulls out her sword and says that this is a duel that she cannot refuse. Naofumi finds this to be ridiculous, says that there's no need to be a duel, that there's no reason to fight. And she says that there is, that she would be much more suited to be in the shield hero's party. Raphtalia then puts her hand on her chest and reaches out toward the lady, saying that she accepts her duel. Naofumi says that this is not needed, and Raphtalia says that she believes if she is as strong as she thinks she is, and how much Naofumi trained her, if she loses, she doesn't deserve to be in Naofumi's party. Naofumi finds this oddly ridiculous, but the duel has been accepted. So they all go out to this small arena, and Raphtalia and Cynthia draw their swords. They're ready to fight, and Naofumi shakes his head. The noblemen say that it's time to begin. The fight begins, and it's pretty even for the most part in the beginning of the fight. Cynthia seems to be very well trained and knows the ins and outs of a sword very well. Raphtalia may have the level and strength advantage, but Cynthia obviously has the technique advantage. The fight continues on for a while, but the level of Raphtalia and the experience she's gotten from the waves definitely overcomes what Cynthia's technique is showing. She is one of the nobleman's daughters, so that is expected, but at the same time, she is a lower level, and the fact is, the nobleman's daughters haven't been leveling up and training as much as, well, Raphtalia would be on top of what Akari has been doing. So, this leads to Raphtalia defeating her, hitting her with the side of her hilt and knocking her out. Raphtalia would never want to kill somebody, at least somebody that is a demi-human for a matter of fact, and just knocks her out. Naofumi jumps down and helps them out and helps get Cynthia to a place to rest, and looks at Raphtalia, and Raphtalia nods. You think she'll be a good addition, don't you? Yes, I do. She has better technique than I do, Master Naofumi. Cynthia is then added to Naofumi's party, and she is super excited about it and thanks him profusely, but he does bring up the fact that he knows she's a nobleman's daughter, but she needs to realize that everybody is equal. She begins to say that that's not true, and he says to a certain extent it is. That yes, there are noblemen, there are peasants, and there are many alike, but everybody plays a role. Everybody plays an important role. Without the people that help them, without the people that help the noblemen, everybody would suffer. So He wants her to think about, well, her ideas, at least toward Raphtalia, before anything is said and done. And she realizes what Naofumi is saying. Naofumi has always been so kind throughout this whole time, genuine, happy. He's been a great help to Siltvelt, and she realizes all of this. She apologizes to Raphtalia profusely, and she's feeling extremely bad about it. She realizes exactly what Naofumi is saying. She basically called her a slave. She didn't deserve it, and that's just horrible. And Naofumi is happy to hear that she's come to this conclusion, and luckily Naofumi is greeting her with open arms, saying that now it's time to level up, to train and prepare for the next waves, and let the noblemen do their jobs as well. And actually, a nobleman approaches him, saying that they're currently in the works with Siltvelt. He's confused. Siltvelt, is that the nation nearby us? It's that small nation, correct? Yes, actually, Siltvelt is a demi-human nation, but unfortunately we have a lot of bad blood with them. But with you here, and with all these ideals that we've been hearing, we decided to reach out to them. And we decided to try and make some peace, maybe to unify. So we decided to become one country. You did? They agreed to this? Yes, in fact, they did. But they do want to see you and meet you. That's no problem at all, I'd love to. But also, just because you unified doesn't mean that everybody is happy, correct? That is correct. That would be a reason why you would be there. Agreed. I'll go down as soon as possible, but obviously I have a lot of things to do. Would you mind telling them that I plan to come down in the next coming weeks or so? Yes, Shield Hero. Of course I will do that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Naofumi and his party then leave. Their training continues, leveling up and all of the sorts. He tries to upgrade their clothing, their armor, and anything he possibly can think of. This all matters. Everything in the grand scheme of everything matters. He visits villages, helps them cure certain diseases with his medicines, and he becomes known as this messiah of some sort. This messiah that makes expert medicines. If you just have the materials for it, he'll make these amazing medicines for you in an instant and cure most sicknesses. Naofumi is like a god to them in a way, but he always reminds them that he likes being treated nicely and fairly, and he loves the idea that they want to cherish him with love and support, but he never wants to be treated as if he was a god. He's not better than any of them. It's in fact that they are the reason why he is so strong. And they're shocked when they hear this. He tells this to every village, even if the village has never seen the shield hero in their life, has only heard folk tales. But Naofumi explains in depth that these three right here, the people in his party, have granted him, well, the course of action of being stronger. Naofumi's personality here is kind of perfect for all of this. He makes it so that the extremists in terms of the Church of the Shield isn't crazy, but at the same time they're so loyal to him that they would jump in front of a blade for him. Naofumi, on the other hand, would do the same for them, would jump in front of them with his shield and protect them no matter what. And this is perfect. With 2 or so weeks going by and training as normal, other known as leveling obviously, they then head down to the section where Siltvelt was once a stand-alone country, meeting with various demi-human nations. When Naofumi arrives, many demi-humans and even some humans greet him with such respect. And frankly, they respect him so much. Siltvelt is a place that really loves the shield hero, or at least respects him enough, well, to obviously greet him with open arms. And he explains that he's here on behalf of obviously Siltvelt, but he knows that they decided to unify, and he'd love to hear their entire story. And the demi-humans and even humans of the inhabitants of Siltvelt are shocked by this. They wouldn't have thought a hero like him would come down here and want to listen to their story of why they initially became their own country, why they initially wanted to just disband. And they explained that there was this disconnect. It seems like the bloodline and politics of Siltvelt were acting of discriminatory of races and other things like that, and then every other nation didn't really like demi-humans. They weren't very welcoming of them by any means. And Naofumi understands, saying that Siltvelt has treated him with the utmost of respect, and he promises that Siltvelt is a completely different place now. It seems that Siltvelt is a place where all demi-humans will now be able to reside peacefully. And they believe him, of course, but they're skeptical. They think that this could be just another ploy by them, but Naofumi says that that's his promise. Two of his party members aren't even of a high bloodline, you could say. One was originated in Melremark, and they're confused. Melremark? Why would she be there? Actually, Raphtalia was a slave in Melremark, and immediately they're all shocked. A slave? They've heard of them being in there, that there was slaves in Melremark, and that they had demi-human slaves, but this is ridiculous, and now she's fighting for the shield hero? He then points at, Cynthia, and says that she's the only real nobleman daughter that's on his squad, and that Akari is a daughter of a blacksmith, but he saw really good potential in her, so decided to take her as his first, obviously party member. They're all shocked by this. They're taken back by the fact that the shield hero actually has these non-nobleman demi-humans in his party, and they ask if there's any chance that they could have some of their warriors join his party as well, and he says that currently he doesn't want more than 3, but he will come back on that offer, maybe even after the next wave, maybe before the next wave. He's not 100% sure, but he's been going around village to village, helping the most he possibly can. He then informs them that he makes medicine. He hands them tons of different medicines that would cure certain diseases, and they ask how much does he owe, or they owe, and he says that they don't owe anything. There's no reason to pay him. He has plenty of money. Siltvelt gives him enough money to support his party and other things, and that's all that really matters. And Shield Frieden says that whatever they give, they'll give him as well, and that it's just a show of respect. And he says that for now, there's no reason for that. All he cares about is peace between the two places, or more like peace between the one place now. Both Siltvelt and Shield Frieden. Maybe you guys can come up with a new name. Some name that combines them both. Not sure. But keep it in mind, if you decide that you want to work coherently with them. Of course, we're not forcing you to do anything. Siltvelt reached out to more or less unify you guys and everybody else because of the effect that I was having. I want this. Frankly, I really do. And Shield Frieden and their noblemen agree, saying that, they would love to work together the best they possibly can, and they'll reach out to the noblemen of Siltvelt. Naofumi smiles and says that sounds great. Peace among these countries is what matters to him, and what matters to his party especially. Raphtalia has gone through a lot, and all of them have as well, but Raphtalia has seen these waves and what it can do to a place, her home. And he doesn't want to see anybody else's homes crumble in ashes anymore. Naofumi thanks them, and as a parting gift, they give him whatever they can, even some upgrades for Raphtalia, for Akari, and even for a nobleman or a nobleman's daughter like Cynthia, which is surprising. They have some quality items here. Naofumi promises that he'll come visit from time to time, and if they ever need help, that they should call out, just in case. They agree, and they thank him for all the help, and he heads off back to the center or the kingdom of Siltvelt. When he arrives, he speaks with the nobleman, and they say that it sounds like a great thing. It sounds like the unity is just over the horizon. With not much time before the next wave, we're talking a couple weeks, 2 to 3 more weeks left before the next wave, his party needs to train, level up, and get ready. And actually, the noblemen of Siltvelt have the best idea to do so. A dungeon nearby their kingdom that is for higher levels, and it seems that their levels are pretty high for that. Naofumi might be a little underleveled, but as a legendary hero, he should be just fine. He agrees. He says that all he needs to do is defend. They say that the level, recommendation would be level 30, but it seems like Naofumi is at a level of 25. But since his party is practically ranging from a level of, 30 to 35 in itself, they'll be just fine. Cynthia is toward the level of Naofumi, about a level of 25, 24, but Raftalia and obviously Akari are on the higher end of the spectrum, sitting around 32 to 35. They are extremely powerful at the moment. So that's what they do. They head to this nearby dungeon to find that it is a higher level of a dungeon. Seemingly, this dungeon will give them the means of getting some new and really good items as well. Maybe even some new shields Naofumi could absorb in a way, or just new items Naofumi could absorb to advance his shield more and more. On top of this, it seems that the loot pool is very interesting, having a very, very good sword. A sword that both Raftalia and Cynthia do want, but they may have to resolve a way that either both of them will end up getting it, or one of them will get it and they'll have to do a little challenge for it. But with that said, they basically just head right in to the dungeon. Luckily, they have some leftover healing potions and such from the last wave, so this dungeon should be at least relatively safe. The first part of the dungeon is just a swarm of bats. It seems like the mage or the magic that Akari can produce is easily enough to defeat these bats, but as they continue through, the cave does get harder and harder, as a dungeon would, eventually leading them to the final boss. It seems like the sword that they saw before, that was the reward of this giant dungeon, is sitting right in front of them, dug into a stone. And, Raftalia and Cynthia go over to pick it out, but they both struggle. Singularly, they cannot do so, so they decide to grab it and pull together. So they do, and they're able to easily pull it off. It's odd, it seems. It seems that the strength of both of them combined were able to slide it out of the rock as if it didn't even have anything attached to it. Like it was easy. Like as if it was so easy that it felt like there was a curse of some sort placed on it, or at least a spell. And as Naofumi begins to think about this, a giant monster crashes through the wall. A gigantic werewolf with a giant sword in his mouth stares daggers into Naofumi. He immediately is shocked, but Raftalia and Cynthia struggle over who should use the sword, and Naofumi says that both of them should. They're confused. How could both of them use the sword? And he says that if they sync up their battle tactics well enough, they should be able to throw the sword to each other, in unison. They both hold the sword singularly, feeling that it's a lot heavier than it would have if they were holding it together, and that's obvious, but it's light as a feather when they're both touching it. But once they both begin to have a conscious mind of letting each other use the sword, it becomes light as a feather once again. They're confused, and Naofumi doesn't have time to think about it and readies his shield. I hope you three are ready, because this monster needs to be taken down. This giant werewolf with a sword in his mouth peaks over a level of 45 to 50, something stronger. No, something even stronger than what they've seen from the waves. Is this an actual dungeon? What is this monster exactly? How does something this strong exist within a dungeon or the caves? Or just a cave? But they'll find out very soon where this monster's from and what this monster is here for. But you'll find out on the next part of What If Naofumi was summoned to Siltvelt. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, sub, and comment down below any suggestions you have for this What If. This What If will continue as long as y'all are enjoying it. I plan to end more or less when the anime ends, but there is going to be a decent amount of spoilers within this series. Keep that in mind. So if you don't want spoilers, then I don't really recommend you watching the series. But if you watched this episode already, you might as well leave a like and sub if you haven't already. And make sure to comment, it helps the algorithm. Well, like I said, I hope y'all all enjoyed, and this did take me a little bit, so I hope you guys did enjoy. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.